Alright, it is October 31st, which is Halloween for me in the States. I know not everyone celebrates this, but it's still a pretty fun way to just spend time with your family or your friends. So I'm going to be doing that tonight. So I want to get this out beforehand. And for Halloween, we have this very special rank up. We have rank 5 Werewolf by Night. And Werewolf by Night is the embodiment of like Halloween. He is a werewolf, which is one of the staples of Halloween, I think. Yeah, right? It's like werewolves, vampires, ghosts, Frankenstein, all the usual characters. And he released this month, which is the Halloween month. And he's also really good. So that's just a nice bonus on top. This was for defense, but he always had my attention because of how strong he is on attack as well. So check out this damage output by Werewolf by Night. Once he gets going, his damage output is insane, especially versus buff heavy characters. I feel like buff heavy champions are his strongest point, because check this out, man. We're going to go in right here. We're going to drop the relic after a couple hits. Then we're going to drop the SP2, and this damage output is a bit silly. So here I drop it, and per buff we do increase damage output, and the ruptures just do some pretty bonkers damage as well. So that was about 40 something seconds for a rank 4 Gallon. Not bad at all. And here's a rank 5 Hulkling, and like I said, against buff heavy champions, this dude hits pretty dang hard. In regular matchups, he has still some pretty decent damage output. Of course, there are issues with this champion, like his lack of, utility, right? But I feel like what he's made for, which is either being a very strong burst-heavy champion that, while he doesn't have too much utility, still has a ton of damage output, or just being a defender, I think he does those things very well. And while I was talking, he took down this rank 5 Hulkling in about 43 seconds, which is really, really impressive. And now we have this Nick Fury here, and this is not an ideal matchup for Werewolf by Night in the slightest. Werewolf by Night, he wants those cosmic characters, he wants champions that have a ton of buffs, and while Nick Fury has some buffs, it's not really enough for Werewolf by Night to take advantage of, so it's not the best matchup out there, but he still takes it in a pretty good amount of time. For a Mystic champion, this is a pretty good Nick Fury time. So here I can just enter my, I think it's called the Curse of Lycanthropy in a bit here. So here I drop it, but then I kind of delay it for some reason, and I do mess up that, but it's fine. He's pretty tanky, he has a ton of health, and he also has some regen, so if you mess up, it's no big deal at all, because he can just help get you back into the fight. And now this one is kind of a wrap after this SP2. So check this out, man. I go in, drop a combo, drop the SP2. He has a couple buffs on him, so that just helps end the fight in under a minute. So for a Nick Fury, that is pretty dang good from a non-mutant character. And now we have this infamous Iron Man, rank 5 Idoom. So this is a very tanky champion, but Werewolf by Night doesn't really care about armor ups or just any resistance besides physical, because he is a physical DPS. His ruptures just, really dig through armor. So that's why he's also a pretty good champion, because I love characters that can just shred through res, and he is a really good res shredder, except for physical res, right? Because that is his main form of damage output. But that was a vicious SP2, and this is looking like a very clean fight already. So we can just bail out the SP2 now, but he plays really passive for some reason, which is not fun. He just refuses to throw it, but then he finally does. And yeah, this one is a wrap. Despair helps block out the regen, and Werewolf by Night is great at blocking out healing with Despair because of his, multitude of debuffs. And we faced a modder, so we lost that one. The modders in Battlegrounds this season, unreal. Just so many of them, man. It is insane. But I think it'll be fixed by next season. I hope it is anyway. But now we have this Kamala Khan. And with Mystic Dispersion, this dude just goes crazy, because you spam SP2, and that is just so much rupture damage. And if there's buffs on the opponent, you just do so much extra physical burst. So it's just such a fun time. And of course, Werewolf by Night, he knows his niche. His niche is buff heavy matchups because that SP2 gets so much extra damage output, and Mystic Dispersion just does a ton for his rotation. But outside of those fights, his damage output is still kind of decent. Like you saw the Nick Fury, he doesn't have too many buffs, but he still took him down pretty well. And while I was talking, this dude just shredded this fight. Like, that was so fast. That was 46 seconds for over 500,000 health. It's just so impressive. And now we have this Wolverine fight, and like I said, he is a physical burst damage dealer. He just doesn't care about, the yellow numbers, so he can bypass things like rage. And if he does hit the rage cap, that's good because that's an extra buff for his SP2. So, there's no disadvantages of using him for this lane. He just benefits really well from it. So here he drops SP2, no big deal. And we are almost in the curse of lycanthropy. Just one more howl is needed. And here we howl. It's so fun to howl also. It's so cool. You are a werewolf. You are playing a werewolf. So you howl, you have very vicious claw attacks. And yeah, this guy is just so much fun to play, and that's the most important thing. If a champion is fun and they're good, you just have an absolute banger of a character, and this dude is just that. He is fun, he is good, he is valuable on attack and defense, though I feel like on defense he might get a bit of a buff because, I don't know, I'm not sold on him on defense, but then again, he's still very new, and his current use in Alliance War is to just get jobbed out by Decay attackers, and I feel like once Decay is gone, he might be clapping, man. He might be a really, really good defender. He has the usual mystic tropes of a defender. He has unstoppable, unblockable, he has DOT into the block, which is pretty dang annoying, so he kind of has it all. He is also a werewolf, which is very intimidating, so he kind of just is the full package. And here we have some 8.3 gameplay. 8.3 was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's just such a nice, relaxing time. The relic stuff, it just makes it a lot easier, and all the paths are just more fun than difficult. So yeah, I liked it. I think it was cool, and you can just use any champion that you want. For example, Werewolf by Night, who is pretty good for this lane, because check out this damage output. We dropped the SP2, and yeah, some vicious damage output there. However, there is one kind of drawback, I guess, for Warwolf by Night. If the opponent has a really long special attack, which for the Cosmic class isn't too common, but Red Goblin here on the SP1 takes a while, right? So that's one minor drawback, but besides that, he's still very, very strong. And yeah, that shredded him right there. And this matchup is now over. So not too bad. That was a minute for an Act 8 Chapter 3 fight. So yeah, this dude is just awesome, right? He is a werewolf, which is, 10 out of 10. He's really fun to play. He shreds buff heavy matchups, and he's just a good DPS in general. While he does utility, he still has a ton of use with just being a monstrous burst character and having some defensive use as well. So yeah, overall, this guy is a great addition to the game. And at rank 5, he is a monster for sure. So let me know your thoughts on Werewolf by Night. If you celebrate Halloween, happy Halloween. And yeah, that's about it for me.